Been waiting all week for that Saturday show. Tune in, see what happened, let your troubles go. Work real hard, now it's time to take it slow. Kick back and relax with that Saturday show.
Shelter them, we all need to cry for them too. The people provide them respect, Jah will provide them love. Indian elders pray for them, soon it will rain as love.
Good morning, Albuquerque, and welcome to another power-packed edition of That Saturday Show, brought to you by the Albuquerque Center for Peace and Justice, your voice and your advocate for social justice. I'm Jim Harvey, your host, and we have a great lineup for you today where we'll be bringing lots of conversation about Native American Heritage Month and what it really means with our friend and comrade in struggle, Maļpíya Black Elk. And we will bring you more music from the incredible group Native Roots. We'll be joined by our good friend and show director, Tom Dent. Tom?
Hi, good morning. The song you heard before we were here was by a group called Native Roots, and the song was called Rain Us Love, and we really could use some rain right now.
Right.
Native Roots is, their music combines Navajo music with reggae, and they're very good friends of the Peace Center. They played during our 30th anniversary, and at the end of the show, you're going to be hearing a long live recorded song called A Place We Call Home.
All right, Tom, we'll look forward to that. Before we get into the rest of the program, let me get this off my chest. So, where the hell is my John Lewis voting rights bill? It looks like the Confederate Party has succeeded once again at shutting down the path to getting this bill passed, and no one seems to have the courage to take on the filibuster so that important legislation like this bill can get passed. While the president is taking a victory lap over the passage of infrastructure bill, and so he should, it seems that we have lost sight of the all-important voting rights bill that could protect us from the Southern strategy of gutting our right to vote. 49 states under the influence of the Confederates, we used to call them Republicans, in the state legislatures are proposing as many as 400 pieces of legislation aimed at destroying the black and, yes, even brown influence in elections. This doesn't bode well for us here, and here are some examples of why. That kid up in Wisconsin who shot and killed demonstrators is on trial right now, and the judge is setting up a scenario where he could easily get acquitted. He's forbidden the prosecutors to refer to the victims as victims, but he's allowing the defense to refer to the victims as rioters and looters. That's a setup if I ever saw one. Our votes or our not voting made Trump happen, and in turn made this right-wing judge happen. Here in New Mexico, when we were cursed with the likes of Susana Martinez as governor, she instructed her public education department to gut textbooks, removing all references to science and the age of the planet, and instead replace it by some biblical claptrap. Fortunately, time ran out and it didn't get to happen. Voters are being purged from the rolls in countless jurisdictions for the flimsiest of reasons, and the voter registration is becoming more difficult for black folks and even brown folks in particular, in even more places. You see, the culture wars and the political wars are all the same, and the Confederates have a plan for winning because that's all they have to offer. Keep you and me away from the progress we're entitled to, and eventually relegate us to the back of the bus again. It's happening, y'all, and the Democrats can't seem to figure out what to do about it. It's about time that we fight for those who can't. We have to stand up and be the voice for those who are being silenced. It's up to us to become the spines for the spineless. Stay woke. Stay woke. Let's hear some good news. Hassani?
Hello, and welcome to Good News News. I'm your correspondent, Hassani Olujimi, and I'm Gugu for Good News. The goal of this segment is to inspire and uplift you, the viewer, with nothing but good news. Our first story is produced locally right here in New Mexico by KOB Channel 4. Let's take a look, shall we?
Tucked away in the East Mountains is a grade A restaurant with a green chili cheeseburger that's well worth the drive. And the only thing better than the burgers is the person who runs it.
Her generosity is just unbelievable, and she's such a blessing to our community.
Bobby Carrillo and her church group head downtown once a month to hand out some basic necessities to the homeless.
And as we got out there, we saw that there was a need for that, but there was also a need for everybody's hungry.
And now, thanks to Burger Boy, they're also able to hand out hundreds of sandwiches.
I asked him for bread one day, and then it was bread and ham and cheese, and I mean, it's everything to put the sandwich together.
Kathy, we just want to tell you that we are so appreciative of everything you've done for us, and you've made us be able to feed so many of the homeless, and we want to pay it forward to you. We want you to know you're such a blessing to this community.
Oh, thank you so much. This community has been a blessing to me.
So we want to pay it forward to you with 100, 200, 300, 400, and we appreciate you so much.
Okay, well, thank you.
At first, Kathy didn't want to take the money, but says she'll donate it to the local food pantry.
Why do you do this and donate the food that you do?
We've always done this. This started back in 1982. There was a gentleman out in front that said he was thirsty. And my husband said, "Have you eaten?" And he said, "No." From then on, anybody that doesn't have food will eat.
Now, even though Kathy is 90-something years young, she says she has no plans of stopping the restaurant or her good deeds. Paying it forward, Patrick Hayes, KOB4.
Now, isn't that good news? Let's explore a little more with our good friends from somethinggood.com.
Director of Love for Ladybug.
Thank you, Riley. I love my blanket.
We are a nonprofit organization that hosts fundraisers to purchase care packages for kids with cancer worldwide. It was all inspired by my best friend growing up when we were 12. Her name was Cassie, and I found out in our 2 years of friendship that she had leukemia. And then about 6 months before she passed away, she relapsed from her cancer and ended up losing her battle in October of 2011. So this October is actually going to be 10 years since she passed. And because I was so young, it was so hard for me to process what happened. But I always had this feeling, this anxious feeling of wanting to make a difference for the childhood cancer community. So this year during quarantine, when we were all doing nothing, I decided to use my time to create this nonprofit in her honor.
Thank you, Love for Ladybug.
It's giving a little positivity to these families that are going through something super traumatic like cancer. It gives them the ability to feel a sense of normalcy when they open up the package and see all their favorite toys and crafts.
Oh, trolls.
What's great about sending care packages is that the connection doesn't stop after the package. I still talk to these families every single day. I still follow their stories. I still donate to their GoFundMes if they're trying to look for research. So there's so many possibilities you can get just from sending these packages.
Thank you, Ladybug.
Little kiss.
Now, isn't that good news? Let's check in with our favorite sassy grandmother, Little Big Mama. What do you have in store for us today, lady?
Thank you, Hassani. I got a question for your viewers today. Did you hear the rumor about butter? Never mind, I'm not gonna spread it. But seriously, baby, I want to tell you about the time I worked in the emergency room. See, a man woke up and he was shrinking. He got dressed and got on the subway and he was still shrinking. Well, he got to the emergency room and there was a long line and he kept shrinking. Waited some more. He kept shrinking. Well, by the time he got to the sign-in window, he had to climb up to the counter and said, "Ma'am, I need help. I'm shrinking." And I told him, sir, you're just gonna have to be a little patient. Bye, baby.
She's a blast. Thank you so much, Little Big Mama. As we always say, the best way to turn a frown upside down is to get goo-goo for good news. I'm your correspondent, Hassani Olujimi, and I'll see you right here next time on That Saturday Show with more good news.
And you're watching That Saturday Show. I'm Jim Harvey, your host. And we are honored today to have with us Maļpíya Black Elk, who works with the NACA-inspired schools. And we brought him on the program for a lot of reasons, not just that this is Native American Month, but because of the fact that he's got a lot of good stuff to talk about that's relevant to all of us. Maļpíya, welcome to That Saturday Show.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
All right. So tell me, what's going on?
All kinds of things, you know what I mean? There's always something going on. But yeah, thanks for having me on, and glad to and honored to be here for Native American Heritage Month.
Yes.
But just to introduce myself, Metakiopi, Chante Washten Ape Chuze Pelo, Maļpíya Black Elk, Machapi, Ma Lakota Na Chicano. Good evening, or good day, or good Saturday, coming to you from the past here.
There you go.
My name is Maļpíya Black Elk. I was born and raised here in Albuquerque and Tewa territory from a community called Los Duranes, and then from my father's side up in South Dakota from a community called Pine Ridge. And so
we know Pine Ridge,
Denver, you know what I mean, and all that. Well, Pine Ridge and Rosebud, you know, got heritage in both. But yeah, born and raised here. And I work, like you said, work for NACA Inspired Schools Network.
Yeah.
And I do lots of different things in the community, you know.
You know, we have another member here, and she's a former board member, in fact, who's from the Pine Ridge area up in South Dakota, too, Elizabeth Smith. She was secretary to the Albuquerque chapter of the United Nations Association for a while, and then she was on our board of directors here and remains very active. And when he whose name we shall not mention was up there last year, you know, she's got relatives that are still there, and they just kept providing us with blow-by-blows of the ongoing invasion in the name of Mount Rushmore and territory that doesn't even belong to the United States. You know, So
yeah, you'll have to introduce me.
Yeah, I have to yeah.
You know, growing up here, I didn't realize until I started working at NACA and being involved in that community there, how many Lakota people there are here in Albuquerque.
It's amazing. I'm running into Lakota people all the time, you know. Yeah.
We need to gather us all together. We all need to do
have
it.
a party. Right?
We'll meet here at the Justice Center.
There you go.
There we go.
The place is open.
Yep, thank you.
So listen, Maļpíya, I know that you know you were in the news recently talking about, you know, a food program and Three Sisters.
Yep.
Bring us up to speed on that.
Yeah, so this is a pretty awesome project. It's being led by Divana Olivas and through the Three Sisters Kitchen organization, and I got my pin there. But yeah, so the project is called Nutritional Values, and so it's like, you know, you look at the back of a box and it's like that's what's in it, right? But also thinking about like what are your values as a person, especially around nutrition.
Yeah.
And so there was different approaches of telling stories through different organizations that were involved. So I was there representing Together for Brothers. I'm the co-chair for their board. But there was also the Coalition to Stop Violence Against Native Women, Encuentro, Three Sisters Kitchen, and oh man,
Right.
You'll have to find out. You have to go on
There you
to
go.
ournutritionalvalues.org.
Okay.
It'll come to me in a second, but right now I'm like, oh, I'm drawing a blank. But yeah, so we got together and we started telling stories around like our experiences with food, our experiences with poverty, especially in poverty around food. You know, when it comes to like things like access to whole and healthy food, you know, and then also looking at like just in general how we view food itself, but also like how we view poverty, right?
Yeah.
And especially around switching the narrative of poverty. I think oftentimes, especially in this capitalistic society we live in, it's like this merit-based, or this the myth of meritocracy. The harder you work, the wealthier you'll be, the better off. So therefore, if you're poor, you're lazy, you're not working hard, all those things that, instead of realizing that it's a system issue, like,
Sure it is.
And so, and if working hard, if that were true, that working hard, hardworking people wouldn't be poor, then, a lot of our people would not be poor because, but also just around the idea of like, we value each other and just, we go more into it, but that's essentially what it is.
Well, we often talk about, the impact of food deserts and the impact of poor communities in particular being inundated with fast food outlets, which become the babysitters, which become the only source of food, and there's no nutritional value in any of that. But you add that with the inconvenience or the impossibilities in some cases of people actually being able to get to an outlet where there is good food, good nutritional food. All those things impact on our health and our diets. And then you wonder why, poor communities, poor populations in particular, suffer from so many other illnesses than anybody else.
Yep. Definitely, that's a big part of it too. Is looking at those food systems, right? First of all, just to rewind a bit, I will say I don't like calling it a food desert, right? Because we live in a desert.
We live in a desert,
right? And I think it challenges this idea of like the Garden of Eden and how like things are supposed to be. Right? and that whole narrative of like looking out and seeing nothing, you know what I mean? And really disregarding like the beauty that exists in the abundance that does exist even in a desert, right? But
there's always an oasis.
That's right. But going back to food systems, one of the cool things I liked about that project, so they partnered, each of the organizations that participated in the storytelling partnered with the local restaurant, locally owned restaurant, and the project also gave, they paid for 100 meals at each of those sites to give away for free.
Wow.
With the, part of the understanding that they source the foods and the ingredients to make these things as much as they can from local growers, right? And so there needs to be a way of really flipping our food systems on their head, right? Because we have plenty of farmers and we can really localize and really provide more equitable access to these food systems if people and systems were more willing. So.
Yeah, and we need to do more. We need to learn more about how we could be supportive of farm to table kinds of systems as well.
Yep.
Yeah. That way we know we're going to get something that's healthy and nutritious and clean. And clean.
That's right.
That's really good. That's really good. So, your work with NACA. Talk to us about that. That I know that's an opportunity of pride for you, and you've been doing it and doing it well. So tell us about it.
I do my best,
Oh yeah, people talk about you in a good way.
But so actually, there's two different entities. So NACA is the school that's here in Albuquerque, right? NACA is the Native American Community Academy. It was started in 2006 here in the International District, adjacent to Wilson Middle School. So NACA came out as a really the community coming together and saying, these are our wants and needs of a school for our children. Like, we want our children to be educated. And there was 3 pillars that really became like the backbone of what NACA is, right? And it's that, of course, because it's a school, we want our students to be academically prepared, right? And they can excel in that realm if they want to. But we also simultaneously, and not at the expense of, need our children to be holistically healthy and secure in their identity. And so part of that by doing, creating a space that is majority Native. We, like I said, in 2006 started as a 6-7 campus, and now we serve K through 12.
Great.
Our campus, the K through 8 campus, is actually at the old Indian School on Indian School Road.
Doing the right thing.
Doing the right thing, yeah.
Yes.
So, after the whole era of General Pratt and the assimilation schools of Kill the Indian, Save the Man, in which we're still dealing with right now, right?
Yeah.
With the gravesite that we know has been there, but it's just been a park and people, unmarked graves, people allowed to just run and play on.
Yeah.
Any other cemetery in the city
would be held as sacred territory.
it's fenced off, it's running, and there's that level of respect for it. And it's like, there's a small little plaque that got stolen. And so now they're finally doing stuff about it. But, all that, it's all tied together, And so, so NACA's doing some really great things for Indigenous folks here in Albuquerque. And there have been other communities, Indigenous communities across New Mexico who were like, how do we get a NACA over here?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, good question. And I don't think it is a copy and paste type of thing. NACA works for Albuquerque because it was created by Albuquerque. Right. So, so from that was created the organization that I work for now, which is the NACA Inspired Schools Network.
Okay.
Right. And so there's a fellowship program where they work with leaders from different communities to help them create the plan and execute the plan of getting schools that are getting like, and it's not always charter schools, right? But however, whatever is relevant and
works for that
community, right?
Yeah.
And so really building the capacity of the community to have their own school, a school that is inspired by NACA.
Sure.
Right? So NACA Inspired Schools Network. And then with I started working there a couple years ago. So with NACA, worked in the gifted program. I worked with the executive director. I worked with the Substance Abuse Prevention Office and then helped create programming that supports boys and young men with social emotional learning. Then I moved into NACA Inspired Schools Network to help lead a community of practice with social emotional learning. And essentially, to sum it up, the way I do my work at NACA is in three pieces: youth empowerment and leadership, there's educator and school supports, and policy advocacy.
Fantastic.
So
fantastic.
Yeah.
It's such important work because there's a lot to do in terms of building the future and installing a vision for future in the kids that go to the schools and their families, but also undoing a lot of the damage that's been done.
Yeah, definitely. I think an approach that has worked for us is a strength-based approach, right?
Yeah.
Because I think too often, especially as Indigenous people, we're inundated with these statistics of how bad our lives are, right?
Yeah.
How much has colonialism and capitalism and patriarchy impacted our communities? Yeah, a shit ton.
Yeah, right.
If I can say that on
Yes. Oh yeah.
But that's to put it mildly, And so it's like seeing that data represented that way, it's not helping anything. And so being able to flip the narrative on itself and like, in spite of all these things, for 500 years our people are still here, right? In spite of assimilation schools that were designed to rid us of our culture and language and disconnect us from communities, we're still here doing the exact opposite thing in the building they try to do it for, because our people are resilient. That's the story that needs to be told. That's what needs to be focused on, because we don't need a pobrecito syndrome. We need to say, we have survived these things, and what are those things that we're surviving, and how do those things change?
So a lot of message in that.
Yeah.
A lot of message, yeah. So in the few minutes we've got left, let's talk a little bit more about, first of all, the impact that NACA has had on Native American communities from your perspective. And then finally we're going to get to Native American Heritage Month.
Gotcha. I'll try to make it quick.
All right.
Long-winded.
You got time.
A lot of things to say.
You got time. Yeah.
They said Black Elk speaks. They didn't say Black Elk speaks too much.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so the impact NACA has had on the Indigenous community of Albuquerque. Well, for one, it's created a place that is safe and welcoming, right? And not just for students, like for myself included. Everywhere I went, growing up with my name of Maļpíya Black Elk, it always othered me. Everywhere I go, what is that? How do you say that? What's your name? Like, repeat it again. Like, where are you from? What does that mean? And then, or making a joke about it, or can I call you something else? When I got to NACA, and it was just like, hi, my name is Maļpíya Black Elk, and they're like, hi.
Yeah, see.
You know, and I was like, holy shit, like I was like, what it means, that's what it feels like to like for things to be normal. And it normalizes and celebrates indigenous heritage. Right. I think, you know, and it's created a place that is safe for especially young people who otherwise don't have the opportunity to connect and grow and build that identity as an indigenous person, the connections to kind of really be brought back into the community, right? So that they can embrace those things. And even if it's something as simple as being able to introduce themselves in their language, there's pride in that, right? So, and I would say that, you know, NACA's, our slogan is growing together, right? And so it's remembering that it's not just the students, right? But it's also the staff and teachers, but also the larger community as a whole. And I will say too, as great as NACA is, and as fantastic, and as much as I believe in it, you know, our capacity is really we're able to serve about 500 Native students, 500 students, right? And when we look at the population of Native students in Albuquerque, there's about 5,000, right? So what about the rest of the 90% of those Native students, right? And those other systems that need to change so that students have that same opportunity to really grow and embrace in their identity, even if they don't have the privilege or opportunity to go to NACA.
I think that's incredible, though. Yeah. That's incredible. You know, there's so much power in a name. So much power in a name. And the fact that you can be in an environment where your name is not only accepted, but it's understood and embraced, you know, is such a powerful thing. You know, I for years, I've gone through this whole situation with the African American community. You know, we're a nameless people. We're nameless people until we come to grips with, you know, our heritage, you know, and then as we begin to seek out and find names that mean something to us, you know, it becomes a different situation altogether. And a lot of people of African heritage that I know, you know, that are straight out of the homeland, you know, they come here and they get that same response from, you know, non-African people. Oh, okay, that's an interesting name. Can I call you something else? Right. You know, that's an insult. Right. That's an insult.
That's
call
dirty.
me by
Can
my
I whitewash
name.
it for you?
Yes. Call me by my name. And that's such an important piece. So there's a lot of power and pride in a name. Yeah. Hold on to it.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
it took me several years to finally embrace it, you know, but it's my name now. And
it's your name.
You know, honor my father by speaking it. So
yes, absolutely. So we've got about a minute left.
Okay.
And in that minute, this is Native American Heritage Month. What kind of impact do you think Native American Heritage Month has or could have, you know, not only on the Native American community, you know, not only on the indigenous community, but on other communities as well? How should we be celebrating and observing this month?
Well, that's a good question. It's a big question. I know we only have a minute.
You will give you two.
You know, Jim, when I think about it, the systems that have created the situations and living situation conditions for indigenous people are the same systems that impact other people of color, other non-white cis men. You know what I mean? Yeah. That, you know, I think it's important to realize that the hardships that Native people face or other people of color or Black people face in their communities, that they're all interconnected. You know what I mean? And, you know, I think that if we were to celebrate indigenous heritage as really being able to tell the truth of American history, and really to understand why there's a decolonial stance against the United States, and the systems that have created it, right? Patriarchy, capitalism, colonialism, that those things impacted everybody, right? Yeah. And so by really understanding the issues, you know, even if it's highlighting it for indigenous people, then, you know, I think then we can name and call those things and really make an actual change, you know. But I don't think that, you know, celebrating or just like saying, oh, look how beautiful their culture is, look how beautiful their jewelry is, right? Look how beautiful their land is that we stole. Like, that's not going to change the living conditions for us or anybody else.
That's right.
Right? We need to call attention to those systems that need to be changed, right? Like that food system that we started this conversation with, right? And our housing system, you know what I mean? Like, we know that Native people or Indigenous people disproportionately represent houseless people, right? And that we have empty homes, you know? But Native people aren't the only houseless people, unsheltered relatives, right? And so we really need to come together, and, you know, all these different times that we have to celebrate and enjoy each other's existence that we have now. We also need to build those connections so that we can work together to take down these systems that put us here in the first place.
So this is the time. This is a call for action.
That's what we got to do.
Yeah, a call for action. Let's not gloss over anything. You know, let's take it on straight ahead. Let's be honest. Let's be transparent. But this is the time for action. Maļpíya Black Elk, thank you so much for being on that Saturday show.
I know.
There you go. All right, exactly.
Yeah.
We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, and back to our studio. And we're back, and just a quick note, the Peace Cafe at the Center for Peace and Justice just opened last Thursday for the first time, and from 10 till 2 every Thursday going forward, drop in. Get a quick drink, get some hot food, have some great conversation. Come on down every Thursday, 10 to 2. Tom, welcome back.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, I'm really excited about the Peace Cafe. Want to tell you about a couple of stories that we're going to be working on in the future and paying really close attention to. One is we're going to be following the money that's coming to New Mexico for this new what is it, $1 trillion infrastructure bill.
Yeah.
New Mexico is going to receive $3.7 billion, and we're going to be following all the programs, what it means to New Mexico, especially, you know, getting broadband out to rural communities to see how that really works and how that really helps, seeing how the highway, all these different projects get going, and that the money is spent correctly here in New Mexico. It's not clear with the money that's coming here to New Mexico if it's going to be used to help with electrical co-op and building solar farms. It is there is a large amount of millions that are going to electric car recharging stations.
Right.
But we really need solar power and wind power to power New Mexico and have people, have consumers have a voice in how sustainable renewable energy is made in New Mexico and how it benefits the entire state. As you know, with a small amount of area, we could power all of Albuquerque. And that goes hand in hand with a story that we've been on top of for a long time, which is the Avangrid P&M merger. And some really big news has happened with that, and we're going to have a very interesting story coming up in just a few minutes on that.
Thank you, Tom. That's a good one. Yeah, we've got Mariel Nanasi coming back again to talk to us about the latest updates with the Avangrid merger. And let's hear about that right now.
You're watching That Saturday Show. I'm Jim Harvey, your host, and we're here with some really upbeat news and an update on what's going on the P&M Avangrid merger front. And with us is that powerhouse attorney who's been leading the charge, the executive director of New Energy Economy for New Mexico, Mariel Nanasi. Welcome back, Mariel.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an important time.
When I picked up the newspaper and read that the chief examiner had recommended a big fat no to this merger, I jumped out of my seat. And I said, well, it can only be because there's an attorney out there and a lot of good people that have been working hard on this case, and good stuff is happening. So give us an update. Where are we at this point, and what's happening going forward?
Well, extremely important news, and that is you are correct. Hearing examiner, chief hearing examiner, Ashley Shinauer voted or recommended to the full PRC, the Public Regulation Commission, to deny the merger between PNM and Avangrid. And he said that he didn't believe that it was in the public interest. And he said that the risks and the harm, the potential risks and potential harm, outweighed the benefits. And he basically said, very importantly, in this case, in this Avangrid and PNM merger case, we refer to them sometimes as joint applicants. So the joint applicants, he said, in this case, violated the commission orders 5 times, just in this case. And then they already, Avangrid Iberdrola is already here, and they have 2 projects in New Mexico. One is the El Cabo Wind Project, and the other one is the La Jolla Wind Project. And in both of those cases, the Avangrid has, he used the word skirted the commission rules and orders. And then he said, well, as if that's not enough, there is $63 million of violations and penalties in Maine, Connecticut, and New York. And there are management audits that have decried their performance. And then he said, but if you go to the top of the pyramid of the Avangrid Iberdrola, you find that the CEO and 3 executive committee members are accused. There's a criminal investigation pending in Spain for forgery and bribery, and also for intimidating people who have adverse positions to what Iberdrola wants. And he said, while that might not be illegal, that's not what we want in New Mexico. And he basically said, if I were you, I would vote against the merger. And then he did something really brilliant. He pivoted and he said, but if you want to accept this merger, here are the following conditions. And there's about 20 of them that he laid out. And in a very important statement, I think probably the most important statement of the whole 400-page certification of stipulation is what it's called, but for our purposes, recommended decision. He said on page 51, if you accept this merger and you include the conditions that I think are necessary and will improve reliability and consumer protections, he said, you better make an effort to have enforcement actions, because these people, they don't, there goes my alarm to tell me to come and talk with you. These people don't abide by the law. And so I thought that was a really, it was like a clarion call. And he said, either you go with no merger or be prepared to spend significant time and effort and money and people power to just make these people abide the law. And so now we have joint applicants are going to file what's called exceptions. That's like objections to his certification of stipulation. And they're going to file that on Friday. And then we have a chance to respond and say why we believe that the merger should actually be denied. And so that's sort of the course of it. I think it's going to go before the full commission, either the first or second Wednesday in December. And so then that they will hear, so that's either the 1st or 8th. There are some other cases, though, pending that must be decided by December 15th. So this might be postponed, but if the current schedule continues, then it will go before the commission on either December 1st or December 8th for a ruling.
We'll keep our fingers crossed for that. You know, when I listen to all this, what's going over in my head over and over again is I cannot believe that P&M, with its checkered history anyway, would bring in this alleged criminal enterprise, you know, to join them, to partner with them in creating, you know, an even larger criminal enterprise. And the only victims in all of this would be us, the public, us, the consumers. And this is just completely ridiculous and totally unacceptable.
Yeah, I mean, what you say is actually really true. I mean, in Maine, they gave, Avangrid has a subsidiary utility there. It's called Central Maine Power. And it's very similar to PNM in terms of a utility. And there, Maine gave Central Maine Power and Avangrid the largest fine it absolutely possibly could by law. And that was a $10 million fine. They are under investigation right now for undermining community solar and rooftop solar, which of course we want in New Mexico, and we don't want a company to come in here and undermine community solar and rooftop solar after we just got it passed last year. And
That's
then
right.
on November 2nd, on election day, the people of Maine overwhelmingly, 60% to 40%, voted against Avangrid's transmission line. And the next day, their response in the newspaper, headlines, front page, was, "We're going ahead anyway." So
wow.
It is wow. And so it's not only about literally bulldozing a pristine forest, and it's not only about that they violate the law, but they have no regard for democracy. And so why would we want to allow a company with that kind of track record to come into New Mexico and run our electric utility? Importantly, I just want to say that the hearing examiner specifically said that he believed that we would have diminished service and reliability if Avangrid came to New Mexico. He also said the two big reasons that we should allegedly want them to come, which is that they have a lot of money and that they're green. And maybe you all know that their logo is a green leaf.
Yes.
Both of those things came in the trial came out to be, well, in fact, Moody's downgraded their credit rating, and they're at the exact same credit rating as P&M. So regarding the money, that excuse for them coming just fell through. And then regarding technical ability, literally the CEO under cross-examination, the CEO of Avangrid under cross-examination said about solar and their ability to put solar into the P&M portfolio. He says, frankly, we'd be flying in the dark.
Wow. We've got a little under a minute left, and I do want to get to next steps and what we as the public can do. But it reminds me, you know, when you're telling the story about what's going on, and I think about all of the advertising that they've already done that makes it sound like it's a foregone conclusion. You know, my response is an old quote: "I cannot hear what you're saying because what you are doing speaks so loudly." And the history is there, you know, and I think that with history on our side like that, we can prevail. So my final question to you, Mariel, is what can we as the public do next to help make certain we push this across the finish line?
Well, thank you for asking, and thank you for having me. Most of your listeners probably live in Albuquerque, and you should all reach out to Cynthia Hall, and you can find her number. Just go to nmprc.org and look at her number and her email. Send her an email, call her up, tell her if you want the merger to go through or not and why. And you can go to NewEnergyEconomy.org and find lots of information, including the hearing examiner's certification of stipulation.
We'll be sure to post all of that information at airing time so that people have those tools in their toolbox to help this process. Mariel Nanasi, thank you so much for this incredible and encouraging update. And we'll be keeping in touch.
Yes, thank you so much, Jim.
Thanks again. All right, you too.
Bye.
Well, we're happy to be here. We're Native Roots. We're based out of Albuquerque, representing different tribal people. But I want to give props to Shauna Lee. Shauna Lee, went to high school with her. My good friend, sister. Good to see you again, connect with you. And to all of the bands that played here tonight, Indigenous, Levi and the Plateros, Chucky Bigay, and all these wonderful acts, Saving Damsels, and it's hard to name all of them, but Native music is on the rise, and it cannot be stopped. So, since we're in your homelands, we're gonna dedicate this one to all of the Dulce people here tonight. This number is called A Place I Call Home. Give it up for John Williams. This is in the Dakota Sioux Nation. On keyboards, yeah. high conscious man. Give it up for Kurt Waco. From the Navajo Nation. He used to play with us when he was 17. And this is his second gig coming back to Native Roots as a man. But I still call him Marcus Kid Ridge. Give it up on bass. Joey General on drums, hey. Yeah, and my name is Skimmy, and I come from a place called Maļpíya. That's over there, it's not too far from here. And some of you might know it as Santa Ana Star. And I'm also from the Jemez Pueblo, and I'm proud to be Native, and I hope you are too. Wishing you all blessings and good health. Mr. Serious! But before we go, we want to make some fry bread tonight. Because we didn't have dinner on the way here.
Until the next time, it's time to say goodbye. When you out here in the streets, keep it real, 505. We love everybody, we just want to let you know. Thanks for tuning in to that Saturday show.